I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z Podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of retention as a service agency Electric, and also the co-founder of Scaleless. Today I'm talking with Sammy Tran, who's the founder and CEO of BMO Media, which is a full stack lifecycle marketing agency. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Brandon.
So before we dive into things here, can you give everybody just your own sort of background and how you got into this world to begin with?
Yeah, let's take a trip down memory lane. Honestly, I got into D2C e-commerce roughly about, I want to say 7 years ago. Just straight out of college, got an internship at a small e-commerce shop. We sold cell phone cases and spending millions and making millions. And it was just so crazy to think that, hey, you can make this much money online selling cell phone cases that are drop shipped from China. And that's when I got into the world of email marketing. I was an intern learning how to do email. And each email that I was sending out was making like $20,000, $30,000 per email. And me, myself, never believed in it, never bought anything from an email, but realizing now that there's a market and the opportunity there, I just kind of went all into digital marketing, especially for e-com. Fast forward out of that job, started at Middlesex, which is a digital marketing agency, full stack across all channels. I was like hire number 3 or 4 in the email department there. Rose through the ranks over the next 3 to 4 years there. By my last year at Middlesex, there was 500 people. I was the VP of CRM managing the entire department. And then shortly after that, we got acquired by Dentsu, iProspect. And then that gave me a great exit for starting my own agency, right? And as of April of 2022, that's when I went full-time into BMO Media, never looked back. And fast forward to today, we've grown exponentially. We're one of the top 5 Klaviyo partners in the ecosystem. And really just loving what I do and loving all the clients and people I work with. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Nice. As it relates to the growth, you obviously experienced it at Middlesex where you guys scaled rapidly. What are some of the things that like worked well there or didn't work well that you brought over to BMO as you've gone through your own sort of hyper growth mode on the hiring side?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because normally like when you're at a company that does the same thing as your next company, it's very much of a mirror type of copy and paste model, but that wasn't exactly the case. What I realized at Middlesex was they focused so much on your paid channels. They didn't prioritize resources into the Lifecycle channels, right? Kind of throwing in Lifecycle as an add-on or just a complementary channel for their clients, and they prioritize all paid media. When shifting it to my own agency, I just went all in on Lifecycle. How can I and my team become the domain experts in Lifecycle, and we will extend across every single facet of Lifecycle? Right. At the previous agency, we just did email and then we started doing SMS. At BMO Media, we do email, SMS, loyalty, referral, direct mail, push, reviews, subscriptions, every single like potential channel that it has to really communicate with the customer to drive engagement or a conversion. That's where we focus on, and that's where we see Lifecycle as a whole in comparative to just, hey, we're an email marketing agency. And I think that's what truly differentiated us from from the pivot over from Middlesex to BMO. And also on top of that, extreme inefficiencies. Just by having your own company and just calling all the shots, there's no red tape, right? You can really have full reign in how you want to lead the vision and the goals of the company, which has really reflected a lot of that success in my leadership. So very happy to be where I'm at.
Yeah, I feel like 500 people, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to manage that size of team. What size are you at now in terms of team headcount?
Yeah, so we have roughly about close to 20 members full time, and then we have another huge side of freelancers and contractors, roughly about another 30 individuals. Um, it's about the same size as how the email department was at Meet6 back in the day. So I was able to grow it to that caliber, and it's been pretty great so far, and we're looking to continue to scale.
How do you balance the like internal versus external resource allocation as you continue to scale? Um,
Yeah, by external like freelance contractors, internal like full time. Um,
yeah.
so obviously we want to prioritize our P&L. So we want to make sure for one, any sort of um, revenue that comes in gets tied to our full-time members because that's a fixed cost every time, right? We need to figure out how to offset the fixed cost by increasing more revenue into each member or each employee. By prioritizing them, we have the freelancer model as a buffer, right? When we don't have the time to, let's say, hire someone in the next day, there's already a pool of freelancers out there that are plug and play, ready to go and execute. So it helps us give cushion room, especially if lead flow is really high. So, so that's pretty much how we prioritize it. And sometimes, like if, let's say, a full-time internal member is not a fit for a client, we can quickly pivot and transition it to a freelancer to kind of help that client retention as well. So there's different avenues of how we like use our freelancers as well as our full-time members. But at the end of the day, it's all about profitability and client retention on how we determine where we allocate the work to.
Have you found yourself specializing in certain verticals in sort of the same way that you've specialized in Lifecycle as a thing that you focus on?
I'd say so. Yeah, I mean, I would say first, like, hey, we're industry agnostic, right? We can manage any sort of brand as long as they're on like Shopify, Klaviyo, Attentive, those typical tech stacks. Um, but really, like the clients that see the most success are the clients that are in the industries that have the highest retention and repeat purchase rates, right? Because that's where we can actually provide a lot of value and ROI to their industry, right? So we're talking apparel, CPG, health and beauty, right? Your typical consumable products that tend to get repeat purchased much more. Whereas like big ticket AOV products like, hey, we're selling this $3,000 couch might not be as fruitful from an email perspective, but that's where we shift our strategy a little bit. We focus on top of funnel email marketing, right? Focusing on the prospects, longer built out funnels where it can still be profitable and very helpful, but just at face value, the numbers look so much better in those other industries that I mentioned.
Yeah, we worked with Plunge for a while, and that was so much different than the clients we were used to working with because they're obviously selling a cold tub that costs anywhere between 5 to 10 grand, and there's not a whole lot of repeat purchasing happening there versus sort of the tried and true recharge Skio Stay AI customer base where you're purchasing anywhere between every 21 to like 60 days, and you're consuming your way through the product, whether it's eating it or using it. But I've just found that more and more folks are looking for like vertical specific experts, which I think there's like a blessing and a curse to that, because I found that there's actually some pretty great things that can come from other verticals in terms of ideas or ways of thinking.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think having a lot of cross vertical experience is just so valuable as an agency because anyone that comes in, you already know the strategy and the playbook for each one, and you can speak to it, and that's what makes agencies really great. If you can really crack the code across each sector.
Where do you see the most growth coming within the life cycle sort of areas that you mentioned? Because obviously, 4 years ago, it was primarily just email and then SMS, but now you mentioned push, direct mail, some of these other channels that you're working through. Where do you see the most opportunity for brands?
Yeah, so let's talk about it, but from an industry standpoint, I would say, let's say you're in health and beauty, CPG. I would say loyalty is going to be your biggest opportunity, right? How do you create a system that's gamified that can get people to come back and really truly become brand loyalists of your product? And by setting up that infrastructure, a lot of brands nowadays that I see, hey, let's plug in a Yotpo or FriendBuy, and then let's just like have it run out of the box on what the basic setup is. And that just never works, right? What we've done for a lot of clients is we've set up advanced loyalty automation architecture where we have placements that send emails and text messages at every stage of the loyalty journey when someone signs up, when someone earns a threshold of points. And not only that, we have these loyalty placements, we call them loyalty blocks, on all emails. With Klaviyo's new universal block feature, we can inject loyalty blocks that say, hey, Brandon, you're a silver tier member with 2,000 points, right? And we show that dynamically on every campaign, every automation that we have. So maximizing exposure and education. And that's what a lot of loyalty programs are lacking. It's just hard to understand for the regular consumer. So if done right, you can probably see a lot of ROI and increase repeat purchase rate for those sectors. As for other industries, I think a referral program is also really great, especially if your product isn't as consumable or repeat purchasable. Referral gives a chance to incentivize and acquire net new customers, just using your existing customer base. And it always has worked well, especially if you're on Facebook, you're spending $50 to acquire a customer and your AOV is $60, whereas you can give away $20 off their first offer in exchange for a customer. I think that speaks a lot more, I guess, efficiency. And if done well at scale, it can be very great for a customer acquisition strategy. As for the others, I'd say direct mail is now very much up and coming. I would say direct mail is one that works across a lot of verticals. With new technology nowadays, direct mail can be linked to physical addresses of people that you don't even have their information on, right? So it can be used as an acquisition strategy. And two, you can plug it into your ESP and use it as a retention and remarketing strategy. The problem is it's expensive and you need to really test the waters on a pretty decent budget in order to make sure it works well and if it's worth exploring and scaling further. But I'd say like those are like the main 3 points right now. But yeah.
What's the stack that you typically like to use to facilitate all those aforementioned channels?
Yeah, I typically go with Yotpo for loyalty. And then let's say we're talking about a brand that doesn't want to do loyalty, they only want to do referrals. We tend to look at like Talkable or FriendBuy. So those are probably the respective stacks. They all have really great integrations with Klaviyo, so we're able to really customize and facilitate a lot of automations. As for the direct mail stack, we tend to do post-pilot if they're on Shopify. If they're a little bit more mid-market at scale, then we'll look into Posty or Poplar. So those tend to have higher minimum postcards, but at the end of the day, you get a price break if you're a middle market doing like 20 to 100 million GMV. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the tech stack has evolved so much in the past couple of years and seems to continue to evolve, but even at an increased acceleration in pace as the COVID headwinds are sort of coming against some of these technology players. And a lot of the ones that we work with, they might have only done one thing in the past, but now they do four.
Yeah.
And that just seems to be more and more the trend.
Yeah, I feel like the trend too is just true platform consolidation. I'm waiting for a world where Klaviyo just comes out with a loyalty stack, a referral stack, reviews. I mean, they're already doing it, right? SendLane's already doing it too. But it's up until that one player comes in hot and has every stack flushed out all in one go. And we're looking at less of just using 5 different apps for a common goal, but just one. And I'm really excited to see where that I guess the future of technology, especially in the Shopify world, is going to take us.
Yeah, I feel like the HubSpot model is what some of the larger players are moving towards, where HubSpot has its marketing hub, its sales hub, its service hub, its CMS hub. You can pretty much, I mean, from a business standpoint, with Electric, we were running everything just out of HubSpot, the website, the sales, any service. That was the one piece of software we used. But then for our ecom clients, we might be using like 45 different apps back in 2020. But it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, because it's pretty obvious that some folks are going that path, like Yapo as an example. I mean, got email, SMS, subscriptions, referral, loyalty, reviews. They've been doing that before anyone was doing that, with all the acquisitions that they made back in like 2017, 2019, et cetera. But I feel like there's going to be 4 or 5 really large players, and there's no reason there needs to be 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, whatever it is, Shopify apps out there. It's just not feasible long term for all of those to be businesses.
Yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree. But I also think like the main core functionality needs to be fleshed out. So if you have a strong email and SMS offering, the rest will come a lot easier from a customer acquisition standpoint for new merchants. But if you don't have that fleshed out and you're just trying to add on, let's say, for example, like we're thinking about Yapo, right? Yapo is a great platform. They have reviews. They bought out SMS Bump for SMS. SMS Bump wasn't a great platform. They've had to invest so much money to kind of refine that tool to make it usable. And now they're launching an email stack. I think they went around it backwards, right? Like with Klaviyo, they did email and SMS first and then expansion of that. Whereas like, I think it's going to be a hard sell to get like to offer like email or sign up for email if they're a review first type of company. But we'll see what happens, and we'll see what the platform evolves to over time.
Yeah, it's like who has a stronger starting point in terms of whether their product is more of a feature or if it is more of a platform. And so I look at all those reviews only apps as, more feature. I think Yapo might be a little bit of an exception because they have, loyalty and referral and whatnot. But it's a lot harder to append email to a reviews product than it is to add reviews to an email product. And it's so integral to the entire stack. Like, if I was Klaviyo, I mean, you could very easily take multiple other apps really out of contention by just adding it to your already massive existing customer base. And they started to do that with reviews a bit, but it'll be interesting. I think what's unique is like Attentive started SMS and then added email.
Yeah.
Which I don't think PostScript has done, or at least hasn't done yet. But with that, having the whole platform sort of architecture be based around the phone number versus based around the email, there's some pretty like unique applications when it comes to being able to track an individual throughout the entire course of their life cycle of a brand, versus if you're using email. Like I got like 9 different emails and I'm constantly adding or changing emails. So it's, once you peel back the layers, just from like an infrastructure standpoint and the way the whole system was architected, where you started definitely has an impact on how you're able to expand into other categories.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think PostScript has always just truly doubled down on SMS and continues to do so. And it's with its recent acquisition of Fondue, I think they're really trying to figure out how to acquire more phone numbers, using their new pop-up models integrated with a cashback model too. So it's like, I think what they're doing is they're staying in their lane, and that could be a powerful strategy in the long run, rather than trying to diversify and put resources into another one, right? And that kind of might contradict the platform consolidation aspect. But if you're a top-notch SMS vendor and you have functionality no one else does, it's kind of hard to say no at that point, especially when you're seeing like X% lifts with the new opt-in feature and things of that sort.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, I can't remember who, but it was from one of the tech partners. And, it's when you're considering adding on a new product, it's more than just, the time and attention that it'll take to get it to launch. After you launch, you then need pretty much like a subset of your team to support that product and to continue to innovate and add on additional features and capabilities. So it's definitely a cost and an expense for a platform to expand into some of these other channels, and inherently is going to distract from whatever the core product was to begin with.
Yeah, no, definitely. Totally hear you on that. Um, I'm curious, like I think like a big point of discussion that I've been seeing a lot in the tech space is identity matching tools. I don't know if you've used any of those in your experience. I know we went through the ringer with retention.com. Now we got like Black Crow, LMR, Blot out there. There's so many of them nowadays. And I'm just like, I'm curious like to understand like what your team uses or what you kind of look for in all of these tools.
Yeah, I think like they serve their purpose, but they're misused and mismanaged a lot of the time. I mean, I've logged into plenty of Klaviyo accounts where maybe they're using retention.com, but they don't have a siloed like customer journey for
Hmm.
those contacts that are coming through retention.com. So then it really just screws up the whole account because you're having all these emails get filtered into like your general sending list that's impacting open rate and click rate because these people might have been on your site for 10 seconds and then they're then pushed into your list as if they placed an order or as if they
Hmm.
gave their email in a pop-up, uh, which that just leads to a bunch of problems. So if we ever do
Yeah.
leverage one of these solutions, we always have some sort of a very specific welcome flow for those folks, and then we have them separated out from the main database, and we're pretty quick to sort of sunset them if
Hmm.
they aren't engaging and if they're not interacting, because especially with all the new things coming out from the email providers or email clients, with as it relates to spam rate and things like that,
Yeah.
deliverability is becoming more and more of a pressing issue, and it is starting to impact some of the brands that we work with.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like we're getting into like uncharted territory in June 1st. And to be frank, like we don't know how much of an impact it will happen because what Gmail and Yahoo regulations are, or effectively Gmail's, you can't have higher than a 0.3% spam, right? And Klaviyo doesn't show this to us. No ESP shows us Gmail users marking as spam because Gmail hides it. So you got to default to like Google Postmaster setup. And then from there, after installing that for a lot of our clients, we saw at least like 20 to 30% of our clients have reached that 0.3% threshold. And what that means is Gmail is saying they're going to ban us from or like limit our deliverability for up to 7 days if we ever hit that 0.3. So we don't know how strong of an impact is going to happen, but I think at the end of the day, it's better to be cautious and figure out how to lower it this month in May before June 1st happens. Because June 1st happens and people are still just kind of throwing emails at the wall, seeing what sticks with their segments, and they're hitting those spam thresholds. They could be banned and they could be prevented from sending at all. And that's going to be detrimental for a lot of businesses, especially if they don't have an email team that is on top of these deliverability issues and on top of these like macro changes in the tech space.
So when I first started digging into Klaviyo and starting to build out that side of the agency, deliverability was like not within my wheelhouse at all. And it was something that it's honestly kind of intimidating. It is a nightmare of
Hmm.
just different settings and
Yeah.
rules and um, so many different, I mean, so many different email clients, so many different devices things can be viewed on, like, image based versus text based, the whole Apple opening and all that nonsense that got rolled out like a year and a half ago. Um, it's a beast. So something that I think is probably going to happen as well is that migrations from email platforms are going to start slowing down a bit because I feel like this just amplifies the risk of making a
That's true.
transition from one ESP to another because you're going to have
Hmm.
to be so much more careful with that warming process. Um,
Hmm.
and like on the scale side of the business with our newsletter, um, the a newsletter platform that will go unnamed started our like migration and warming process and just bungled it so badly. And once that domain reputation is in the toilet, it's really challenging to bring it back. It's so much easier to just start off strong and keep it
Hmm.
strong than it is to try and claw back from getting into trouble with Gmail.
Yeah, I think for deliverability, the rule of thumb is once you run into issues, once you it's not one step back, it's two steps back, one step forward, right? So you got to make sure whatever you're doing is just really flawless in best practices for engaged segments and sending protocols. Honestly, it is a nightmare. Once your domain reputation gets hit, that's when things get really bad, right? It's not the end of the day when you're in like a couple of common blacklists or block lists, but once your domain's hit, it just impacts everything. Your emails to your colleagues, your emails, promotions and newsletters and automations, it all just gets impacted from the root domain. And that's a tough hole to get out of.
I wonder if we're going to start seeing brands get creative with leveraging, multiple root domains across different platforms.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I been talking to a lot of deliverability experts in the realm. Like one of them, Jimmy from SendLane, thinking about how to approach different mail streams of sending. So, like for example, providing multiple subdomains. So you have one, let's say automations.brand.com, campaigns.brand.com, transactional.brand.com, right? So we're creating all these different mail streams for different types of emails that are sent out, right? So if one subdomain gets banned or gets thrown into the gutter, it won't affect the other ones, right? And we can use and focus and pinpoint those issues on that one domain so it doesn't trickle down to your entire sending infrastructure, which could be like where a lot of strategies are going to come into place post June 1st. Right now, I feel that Klaviyo is not giving us the best resources or the insight in navigating this world. Whereas the players and the vendors that are on top of it, that are building strategies to overcome it and combat it, I think that's where a lot of business is going to be shifted towards in the near future.
I don't think the hands-off approach, we'll let the clients and the agencies figure it out, is going to be the proper path forward here. And I think it'll probably serve as a point of differentiation for some email platforms versus others, how in-depth they are with their deliverability, both from a reporting standpoint, but also just the expertise and knowledge that they have on their teams in terms of that. I'm not envious of, of folks who have to tackle that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's been my life the last like 4 or 5 months. As soon as they release those new requirements, and they just keep pushing it back, and then now we're at the finish line. We got 2 weeks left, 3 weeks almost. So
2.5 weeks left to keep spamming, and then and then you got to stop.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Like I realize it's kind of like messed up how Gmail has set it up. They're rewarding essentially the highest volume senders. So when we have brands that are like 60, 100 million plus in revenue who send emails every day, they have multi-million email lists, they don't get issues with spam because their volume is always going to be high. They're always sending like 1 million emails a day. So like, let's say 10 people, 20 people mark as spam, that's a fraction of that total send volume. So they never have that high percentage threshold. What's impacting is the small to medium brands where they can't really afford to send that much every day. And they don't even have that big of a list because let's say one day they have 1,000 emails go out from automations. If 3 people mark as spam, they're already over the threshold. And that can lead to them getting banned, right? So those are like, it's just not the best scenario. Like, I don't understand why Gmail is rewarding or protecting these high volume brands that send extremely more and penalizing the mid to small brands that can't send as much, and they're getting those spam rates up.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar in one sense to when those Apple privacy changes came out that really impacted paid ads. We saw it really hurt small businesses because they have far less customers, far less data, and so when you're shrinking the amount of sort of data that you have access to because of all the new privacy rules, most of the folks opted out. So the small brands went from having barely enough data to be able to do like, lookalike audiences and things of that nature to having not even near enough data to do so. But the brands that are doing $100+ million a year it impacted them a little bit, but not nearly as much as, the SMBs that are trying to grow and scale.
Yeah, it's a much more challenging landscape now. But I mean, that's why we're here for it. I mean, I think it's important to just stay like top of mind and understand that when you need to pivot and how you should pivot. Otherwise, like you're just going to be left in the dust if you're not on top of these changes consistently.
If you were to start a brand today, what kind of brand would it be?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I've always wanted to kind of get back into it. I've actually started a couple brands historically. Um, and the ones that I would definitely want to get back into is something that has a subscription model. I think that is just the most, like the best way for profitability and scale at a long run, right? Because um, like starting a one time or one SKU brand is going to be tough, right? So I would probably lean into more like the supplements, nutraceuticals type of brand, um, something that really fixes a problem, and can drive a lot of repeat purchase behavior. Something that has also a high AOV. Um, Honestly, like building brands take a lot of money. When I started my first brand, it was a nootropics brand. We sold brain supplements, right, to help you focus and be energized throughout the day. We noticed a lot of people were taking Adderall, so we had a lot of positioning on like how can we say, hey, you don't need Adderall, you can just take these supplements and it can help and not have that crash and burnout feeling. And we raised $250,000 in on our seed round, and we blew through that money in like 6 months, right? So I say like before even thinking about starting a brand, for one, your product needs to be fleshed out. Two, you need to have a really solid amount of funding, especially if you're understanding like how fast you're trying to scale. Um, and three, having a super strong marketing team in place to really go to market and effectively launch without burning cash, without going into the red days. Because once you're in the e-com world, spending money on media, it's just a huge balancing act. Like one bad weekend can throw you into the red for the next month, right? So how can we navigate that and make sure we're staying profitable? But that goes back to my reasoning. Subscription brands, right? We can afford to lose money on an acquisition because now the model is very set in stone. Over the course of the next 3 months, we're going to get that money back and get into the green. So that's probably where I would go. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I have no illusions of ever starting a brand. I've I've worked with enough to see how hard it is. I mean, sure, it's very rewarding if you can make it work, but I mean, talk about a beast when it comes to once you start getting into omni-channel, and like retail is a world that I never really touched except for having to listen to people complain about it
Yeah.
and everything that it does to impact cash flow and just dealing with the retailers. And you know you'll see these posts like, we're now in Walmart in like a small subset of the US as like as a test run.
Hmm.
And so many brands, that's sort of like the death toll because of the requirements that it'll bring upon them in terms of inventory and cash. And if you can't make it out of that test stage, it's very challenging. But
Yeah. I'd say a lot of like I worked with a lot of consumer packaged goods brands like CPG drinks, right? Like a lot of just like canned drinks. They always fail D2C from the get-go unless they have like ridiculous amounts of funding and a lot of brand awareness. But that's where I see a lot of those brands, they crack the retail code first, establish brand awareness, and then they can advertise on Facebook and have lower CPMs and lower CPAs because it doesn't take that much more to buy. I mean, buying as a business owner and you're selling a 12 pack of drinks online, you're already losing like 30-40% of your margin to the shipping costs alone. So it's always been a really um, hard industry to crack D2C up until you just get brand awareness. We're talking like Liquid Death, for example, right? They used to sell their water on D2C and they completely shut that off in the last couple of years, and they only sell their merch D2C, right? And they only sell all of their water on Amazon, or they direct people to buy it in store, which is interesting because I mean, you're playing with margins at the end of the day with that.
yeah, I think the Amazon route makes a lot of sense for some of these items that are really low cost per unit, heavy to ship.
Hmm.
Um, And the conversion rates on Amazon are ridiculous compared to what they are on a D2C website. So like Poppy, you can only buy on Amazon. Like, you can't even buy it on their website. And I've got it as a part of my subscribe and save bundle, which I think is another thing that some people don't think about necessarily, is that it's so much easier to subscribe to a product on Amazon because you're adding it to a basket that's coming from other vendors. And so, once a month I'm getting my fish oil, my Poppy, and whatever 4 or 5 other items in a 15% off package from Amazon, and it's super, super seamless.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Amazon has done a phenomenal job just really making sure it's so easy for customers to purchase while also making it super easy for vendors to sign up and sell their products. The problem with Amazon is we can't get the email addresses, we can't retarget, and that causes a big gap, especially when we're doing D2C marketing and then we got a huge Amazon presence for a client. There's just nothing that we can really do. There's some growth hacking strategies, but I think that has been a big hurdle, especially when a client comes to us and they're like, yeah, 60% of our sales are on Amazon. I'm just like, might not be a lot of opportunity we can do there, right?
Yeah. There are some tools that are starting to come out when it comes to Amazon attribution, but it still is so far away from, the true level of personalization and retention you're able to roll out when you are, dealing with that first party data from a Shopify storefront.
Yeah. I still think it's smart that Amazon's doing it. They're gatekeeping their customer data. They're forcing people to go back on Amazon. Otherwise, if they let the emails out, then the floodgates will go directly to the website. We're just directing traffic that's to somewhere more profitable at that point. But who knows? I think hopefully there's a workaround or some sort of platform that allows us to remarket on a messaging basis to our Amazon customer base. But we'll see.
That would be the dream.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on today, sharing some of these insights with everybody listening. Before we hop, can you let everybody know where they can find you online if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, definitely. You can reach out and get in touch through my website, bmomedia.co. You can reach out on there or connect with me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message. But I'm very open at just having conversations and just really talking shop and business overall. So don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in learning more.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining. As always, for everybody listening, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com. And we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.